Winter loosened its grip on the continent slowly, like a wounded beast refusing to die. Snow still clung to the shadows of Caer Morin's broken stones as Geralt rode out at dawn, Roach's breath fogging the air. The keep stood behind him, silent and watchful, full of memories he did not care to revisit. Vesemir was gone. Yennefer was elsewhere. Ciri's path had pulled her far from the walls that once promised safety. Geralt preferred the road. The road asked fewer questions. The contract was simple on paper. A river town near the Ponta reported missing fishermen, torn nets, and something dragging bodies under in the dark. Simple rarely meant easy. Geralt welcomed that. Simplicity left room for thought, and thought kept the ghosts at bay. By the time he reached the town, dusk had turned the water into black glass. The locals watched him with the usual mix of fear and hope. A woman with red hands from scrubbing fish guts pressed a crude map into his palm and spoke of singing at night, a voice that wasn't human. Geralt nodded, took the coin, and waited until the moon climbed high. The creature was a variant siren, twisted by pollution upstream and the careless dumping of alchemical waste from a noble's private workshop. It died fast, steel and silver flashing once, clean and final. Geralt burned the remains and collected proof. When he returned to town, the people paid him and asked him to stay. He didn't. The road called again. 3 days later, news caught him like a hook under the ribs. In a border village, Nilfgaardian banners had been torn down and replaced with symbols he did not recognize. Circles cut by intersecting lines, etched deep into wood and flesh alike. The rumor that followed was worse. A girl with ashen hair had been seen there, traveling with a small group, leaving destruction behind them. Geralt's hand tightened around his reins. Coin meant nothing now. He rode hard, pushing Roach past comfort, until the land grew scarred and tense. Burned farms. The watchtower had once guarded a trade road that no longer existed. Its stones were cracked, its upper floors collapsed inward like broken teeth. The light Geralt and Yennefer had seen pulsed from deep below, where a cellar should have been sealed centuries ago. Instead, the entrance yawned open, rimmed with fresh scorch marks and symbols carved with deliberate care. Yennefer knelt to examine them, fingers hovering just above the stone. "This isn't sloppy cult magic," she said quietly. "Someone taught them. Someone old." Geralt listened to the silence. No rats. No wind. "Ciri was here," he said. "Recently." They descended together, their movements practiced, instinctive. The chamber below was wider than the tower should have allowed, the walls bending inward at angles that hurt the eyes. At the center stood a stone ring, cracked and humming, its surface veined with glowing lines that matched the symbols spreading across the continent. Blood had been spilled here, enough to wake something that preferred to stay asleep. Ciri had stood inside that ring. Geralt knew it the way a parent knows when a child has been hurt, even before seeing the wound. "She didn't open this on purpose," Yennefer said, her voice tight. "But she didn't close it either." Before Geralt could respond, the air shifted. A ripple passed through the chamber, and figures stepped out of nothing. Not monsters. Men and women in plain armor, their faces calm, almost relieved. At their head stood a man with silver-threaded hair and eyes that reflected the ring's glow too well. "You're late," the man said, smiling at Geralt. "But expected." Steel left its sheath in a whisper. "Step aside." The man shook his head. "We don't want you." "Not yet." The girl chose her path. Yennefer's magic flared, invisible pressure bending the air. "She didn't choose anything. You pushed." The man laughed softly. "Everyone is pushed. We simply made the direction clear." The fight was short and brutal. These were no. They traveled at night and rested during the day, not because it was safer, but because the world felt quieter in the dark. The glowing seams in the land dimmed under moonlight, as if ashamed to be seen. Geralt led them along forgotten paths, old smuggler trails and dry riverbeds that barely existed on maps. Yennefer warded their camps, subtle spells layered over one another like silk. Ciri tried to sleep and mostly failed. When she did drift off, the dreams came fast and sharp. Cities stacked atop one another like reflections in broken glass. Skies that burned green. Oceans frozen mid-wave. And always the same presence, patient, observant, never rushing her. The man with burning eyes no longer stood apart. He walked beside her now, pointing out the cracks, explaining what they meant. "You feel it," he said in one dream, his voice echoing from everywhere at once. "The pain of it. Creation tearing itself apart." "I didn't do this," Ciri replied, though doubt gnawed at her. "No," he agreed gently. "But you can end it." She woke gasping, Yennefer already at her side, fingers cool against her forehead. No blood this time. That felt like a victory. They reached an old port city on the edge of the Yaruga, once prosperous, now hollowed out by war and shifting borders. Ships sat rotting in the harbor, their crews long gone. It was the kind of place secrets liked to hide. Yennefer had come here once before, years ago, chasing a spell that could fold distance like paper. She hoped the remnants of that research still existed. The library lay beneath a collapsed magistrate's hall, protected by wards so old they had become part of the stone. Yennefer smiled despite herself as she broke through them. "At least some people built things to last," she said. Inside, the air smelled of dust and ink. Scrolls and books lay scattered, some ruined, others miraculously intact. As Yennefer began searching, Geralt took position near the entrance, listening to the city breathe. Ciri W. The island did not exist by morning. What remained was a jagged reef, barely visible above the water, as if the land itself had decided to forget. Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri stood on a narrow stretch of stone that should not have been there, wrapped in silence so complete it rang in the ears. Ciri slept, finally, her exhaustion too deep for dreams. Yennefer broke the quiet first. "We can't keep running." Geralt nodded. He had reached the same conclusion somewhere between the screams and the breaking sky. "Then we make him come to us." They carried Ciri inland, following a pull Yennefer felt rather than any map. Magic flowed strangely now, bending toward certain places like iron filings to a lodestone. The strongest current led them to an ancient ruin hidden in a mountain pass, older than human kingdoms, older than elven songs. Stones there had been shaped to mark a boundary, not a home. A warning. This was a lock, Yennefer said, brushing snow from a carved symbol. Not meant to be opened again. Ciri woke as they crossed into the ruin, her eyes clear for the first time in days. "He's here," she said simply. The air thickened. Light dimmed, as if swallowed. From the center of the ruin, the man with burning eyes stepped forward, no longer content with half-forms and dreams. He looked almost human now, solid and present, though the edges of him still blurred, as if reality struggled to agree with his existence. "You've done well," he said to Ciri. "Better than I expected." Geralt placed himself between them. "You want her, you go through me." The man regarded him with curiosity. "You are a blade. Blades break." Yennefer's magic coiled, dark and brilliant. "And I am the hand that decides where it cuts." He laughed, and the sound echoed across 1,000 worlds. "You think this ends with violence. It never does." He turned back to Ciri, his gaze softening. He showed her visions without asking. Worlds collapsing into nothing. Others stabilizing, healed, thrive.